Hello everyone and welcome to today's session. I am Roshan Jaswal, co-founder of Insured Mind, a software platform with CRM Sales and Marketing Automation, designed and developed only for insurance industry. For those of you just joining us, welcome. A recorded session of this webinar will be available on Insured Mind website. We have been continuously doing a series of webinars talking about CRMs, talking about AMS, talking about customer engagement, talking about sales funnel, and everything that has to do with your business and has to do with growth in your business. And today we have another yet very exciting topic, which is a debate that is ongoing for months and years now, is where do we start, AMS or CRM or both? And that's what we're going to be talking through. And how can you use the best of both worlds? Let's start by introducing our agenda today, which is to start with, as you can see, some beautiful lady here, Dawn, joining us, and we have Sean and Brian along with them, and we will do a quick introduction in a quick minute. But after that, we will be diving deeper into agency management system, from a perspective of these three folks on the call, and then we will go into the debate about what is AMS and CRM, where is that fine line, what are the overlaps, and what are the clear strengths on either side. And then a world without the CRM, what would that look like? And then a little bit about why Insured Mind plays a role in that. So without any further ado, let's introduce our panelists here. And why don't we start with you, Don? Let's get a quick introduction, you and Barney Insurance.
Certainly. So I serve as Director of Operations for Barney Insurance. I've been with this group 25 years, and we've grown in location and number of employees, and we range now across multi-location, multi-state, and we have just recently migrated from one agency management system to another. We have been using InsuredMine for a number of months, and we couldn't be happier and more excited about all that lies ahead.
Awesome. Thank you, Dom. Thanks for joining. It's rare to match that exuberance and that excitement you bring to this whole Insured Mind. We start seeing Insured Mind in a whole different light by having customers like you all. So thank you all for being an evangelist. Sean, I see a pretty picture of not you, but your cute little daughter there. Please go ahead, introduce yourself and what Social Titan does in a larger scheme of things.
Yeah, so I'm Sean Williams, owner and managing director of Social Titan Insurance in Tampa, Florida. Basically, our focus is on personal lines within the state. We're pretty aggressive with our marketing statewide, and really what Insured Mind has done is allow us to become even more aggressive and being able to handle such a larger workload per agent, increasing the bottom line, basically.
Of course. Thank you. Thanks, Sean. Thanks for joining. Brian, I'm very excited to have Brian on the call. It took some extra effort for me to think through, who beyond the agency profile should we be bringing? And, nobody better than Brian came to my mind when we started thinking. And he's gracious enough, agreed to join the call, as what it does, it brings a whole different perspective to the conversation beyond just agency, but looking at it from a cluster, from a network perspective. So thank you, Brian, for joining today. A quick introduction of yours.
Sure. Hi, I'm Brian Bandrowski. I'm Chief Operating Officer for Secure Risk. We're, as Roshan mentioned, a cluster, if you will, but our group's a little bit different. That's a true cooperative, where the agencies within the group are equal owners. We have 108 agencies across the Southeast primarily. We're doing about $3.1 billion in premium collectively, and a variety of agency management systems that we can talk a little bit about what my role will be in terms of working with Insured Mind, what we're hoping to accomplish in terms of data management and aggregation of that data. It's excited to be here.
Of course. Thank you. Thanks, Brian. And most of you know me, but if not, a quick introduction. I'm a CEO and co-founder of Insured Mind. Insured Mind is, let's go deeper into what is Insured Mind. So it's a sales CRM and a marketing automation platform. And it's interestingly, as we picked up our panelists, as Sean is primarily so much focused on automations and bringing all those into the marketing side of things, whereas Don is all about, on the sales side, from pipe drive transitioning and using AMS, whereas Brian is all about data. So it brings a very good flavor of what we do and how that comes up into light in context of our panelists. But more than that, let's take a step back, talk about what does InsuredMine do to help an agency. So it connects to your agency management system to start with. And by connecting to your management system, first thing what it helps you get rid of is dual entry. And so you are not entering the same information twice and reducing your inefficiency so you can focus on what is important, which is to focus on the clients and to grow your business. And so let that AMS be your policy administration or policy management system, but let InsuredMine be the customer relationship system of your choice. And by doing that, what it helps you accomplish is 3 core goals, which is it helps you engage, it helps you convert, and it helps you retain. So how are you working with your prospects and converting those prospects or stranger into client in a much better rigorous cycle of conversions? So nothing is dropping through the cracks and everything is moving in a much more efficient and effective way. And similarly, when you are engaging with them, it does not need to be one-on engagement with all your 10,000 clients. What part of that can be automated and can be scaled and repeated? And that's what we focus on all the time. And the third aspect of that is about retention. How does retention at its core work? Retention at its core work when you are transitioning a prospect to a client and client into your advocate. How do you get an advocate? It is by building that relation, building that engagement, building that trust that will yield into more upsell opportunity, that will yield into more cross-sell opportunity. And those are the indicators. When you have more cross-sell, upsell, those are indicators that customer is converting into an advocate of your company. And that's what journey is all about through InsuredMine. And those are the 3 things we focus on. And we accomplish those 3 things with our model called SEAM, SEAM. So anything about InsuredMine, if you do not end up remembering, that's totally acceptable. Just remember these 4 words, which is SEAM, which is sales, engagement, analytics, and mobility. Because everything hovers around these 4 words and how a journey within an agency needs to look at. Where you start with your sales journey by building that relation with your prospect or a lead, nurturing that to becoming a client and nurturing that client to become an advocate. And in the process, how your operations is working behind the scene to bring that cadence and that efficiency over and over again. And using that, you would need those communication channels. And as we all understand, because of Facebook, Amazon, Google's, all that has built a whole different set of expectation for all your clients. So how are you competing against that expectations so that they are not transitioning into over-the-counter products rather than having that relationship? Because we bet very heavily on agency community. And this is one example that we call ourselves not as a solution provider. We see ourselves as innovators, and we lead innovation as a service. And because, being an individual agency, you may not have that $1 billion pocket to spend that a large carrier would or a captive agency's support would have. So how do you go and compete with them? Having a solution that will let you innovate every day. And these are the things that helps you do that. How are you building those automations in your communication? Whether it's in your sales automation, whether it's your marketing automation, whether you are automating your operations. A lot of things happens between all these elements. How do you interplay all of those? Similarly about having that last mile connectivity with your clients. So what are we doing to replicate a successful model? Are we able to get our mobile app to the client's pocket? And what does it take to get to that point?
So building that engagement, because we may very successfully say we have 10,000 clients, and that's great. But you have 10,000 clients. How many advocates do you have? And that transition is needed through this nurturing process, through this customer experience, through this last mile connectivity. And all that you can measure, as we say in our analytics, is to understand the data story. This data story of your agency. Are you an aging agency? Are you a monoline agency? Are you a personal lines agency? What is it? What is the nature of the business that you do? What are you winning every day? If you win, why you win? If you lose, why are you losing those? Understand that business model will help you do better. Because once you know what winning looks like, you double down on that. You rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. That's how you scale. And that is kind of, I would not say dumb down, but it boils down to a very simple equation of what you need to do. Last but not the least, as we talk about the mobility, is how are you building that experience when you need to issue a certificate of insurance, when you need to issue a payment request, when you need to give them a policy document? How are those service related or customer experience related connectivity is all coming together? So in a nutshell, once you bring this journey together for your agency and your client, it all boils down to these 4 elements, what we call a theme. These are the 4 wheels of a car. You literally cannot drive with 3 or 5. You got to have these 4 wheels that you need. Well, enough of Insured Mind. I hope that gives you a perspective who has joined us for the first time. Now let's dig deeper into the AMS and the CRM story. So where do we start? We start by understanding the focus of our panelists on what do they think, how these 7 elements stack. And again, this will have a whole different, so again, out of these 7, let's pick up your top 3. So Don, what do you see from your perspective in your agency? What are the top 3 things you guys stack?
It's hard to narrow 3 down. They're all key and important. I would say without customers, we wouldn't have business. Without carriers, we couldn't write the business. And then without the data to know how's it all working together. So we have to use our customers to grow. Our carriers, there's certain needs with the carriers. And then the data is where you learn and grow and scale.
Well, I know it's a tough, tricky question because there is no right answer to this. Given a choice, I made it even difficult by saying pick the 3 because all you need, right? But the point is, end of the day, you will have to, a strategy has to be nailed down to 1, 2, 3 things. We cannot work on 7 things simultaneously. And there is a reason why we have put customer on top. And it's not that, carriers or employees or costs are not important. It's not stacked, but they will automatically get elevated to a point if we have taken care of our customers. So again, difficult question. So again, just wanted to get a feel of, where it all fits in. Sean, what do you see?
The people aspect of it first with the customer and the employee. And then, from there on out, it's I think it's about the processes. If you handle the processes that come with the customer and the employee, everything else is going to take care of itself. So, we're very process driven here, just as far as initial contact to, having the customer know every step that we're in through their process. I mean, they even get a text message when it says, hey, we're now working on your quote. If we don't have it back to them within, by next day, they get another message saying we're still working on it. But really being able to get the employees to buy into the processes as well enables us to better take care of the customers. And as long as you can do that, the cost, the growth, the carriers are going to be happy. You'll be able to better leverage your data against that. So definitely the customers, the employees, and the processes for us.
Well, I was expecting that your answer would have process in the mix, but yeah, no, I hear you. Thank you. Brian, how do you see how they stack up?
I think in general, from just an overall perspective, customer would be my top three. Without that, none of the others matter. They all interconnect in terms of helping the agency. But for my role individually and what we're doing as a group, data is key. Data growth retention with the carriers. Without that, we don't really have a whole lot to go to our carrier partners and say, hey, we've got a reason to do business as a group. But without the data, we have a difficult time knowing what kind of business we are doing. And that's where the data is so critical on our end.
Of course. That was unexpected. Data would play a core role in how you all conduct or operate, because one of the elements is how you are synthesizing data for, $3 billion business. Let's look at it that way. And what would that mean? Because a swing of 1% is in millions, right? And that's huge. And so what can we do to, even look at that will have a swing of 1% or 3 to 5% growth is remarkable if we can continuously do that. And so obviously, just the idea was to warm everybody up in terms of start thinking. These are some data points that you all should be thinking and start stacking them in terms of where your priorities are. There is no wrong answer to this, but once you pick your priority, that will help you determine what are my biggest pain points associated with that priority. If customer is your priority, what are my pain points with my customer relationship or customer management? And if data is my pain point, then what is my biggest pain point with data in terms of, do I not have quality data? Am I not managing that data? Or am I not utilizing that data? All of these becomes the same thing in the process. Do I have a consistent process? Or am I making sure that process is being, there is a compliance in that process, that everybody is following that process? And what am I learning to evolve that process every time? Am I following some kind of methodology to make sure that is getting better and better? So all of these would matter based on what you choose as your primary focus. All right. Moving on to our next question here is agency management system. And so probably we'll start with you, Sean, as you have used multiple management systems. What do you think that they provide that you just cannot live without?
A direct pipeline to our transactions with the carriers. Being able to see what's going on at all times. If a customer calls in directly to a carrier, it's difficult for us to know what's going on, especially if there's no communication between the two of us, and that happens, frequently and sometimes intentionally. But just being able to see those things and catching them before they get to the client, in some cases, is really, what we really need our CRM for.
Mm-hmm. So you primarily use your system as a system of record for policies, how and where the policy is, in what state, and what is going on.
Right. It's basically a database in a mailbox.
I hear you. Don, what do you guys use it for? And as you are transitioning, what made you transition, probably without going into specifics of the name, but yeah.
Certainly. So the agency management system serves for us in our agency as a conduit to the companies, to the carriers. It's how we transmit information. It's an electronic filing cabinet for most everyone. I think everyone would agree you need it for binding, for some quoting, for some of those, I see your word at the bottom, the necessary evil of accord forms. So it is a necessary evil. It really has become, as Sean said, like an electronic filing cabinet where all of your client file is kept.
So let me ask you this. Is this a new thinking that it has become an electronic filing cabinet, or is that how it has been for last 10, 20 years?
It certainly has evolved, because when I started in the industry, we did have paper files, and we have transitioned, which is why we did migrate from one agency management system to another, was to improve efficiencies and the quality for our employees, to have a good system to run on, a good track to run on. Definitely transitioned.
That reminds me of Henry Ford's quote. If you ask people what they want, they will say a faster horse. So this sounds like a faster horse rather than they need a car. And so, but again, I think what has also played a role in this is the customer side of things. Earlier, it was seen from a solution of what I can offer, but now it is also about what customer wants from us. Certainly, customer expectation has started playing a key role. So our system needs to be designed not for the solution we can provide, but the solution that a customer wants. And so in that sense, even though it is a filing cabinet, it has a slow adoption in terms of how it needs to be in terms of a customer relationship product or anything about making customer the center of it. Right? Brian, how do you see it in context of 100 plus agencies using probably 15 or 10 plus AMS?
9 different management systems used amongst our
9?
group.
Okay.
The primary ones are the big players that you all know and have heard of, and likely in many cases are using as well. But I think the filing cabinet analogy is perfect. It is truly what it is. It's basically where you store the information. And I think for most agencies, they're utilizing it for those transactions and for accounting, and that's where the primary functions are. Without those, and without a tool to store all that information, it's almost impossible for different people in different functions within the agency to all be able to access the same information and work from that.
So do you guys see it as, well, I think I have taken this liberty of stretching it a little bit because I wanted to challenge you all on this question is, do you see it as a necessary evil that you got to have it? Or because we do come across agencies who are completely moving to non-AMS, and we ask that question often, but I don't think that is the solution, at least at the moment, but I want to hear your perspective. Go ahead, Brian.
I think to a certain extent, it is necessary. Evil, it depends on who you ask. I think, there's pros and cons. I think, at the end of the day, without it, as I said, it's going to be very difficult for an agency to know what they're doing, who their clients are, what policies they have, what billing is out there, what the commissions are, and in particular with all of the downloads that are done with the companies. I think that's where you're pretty much tied into the management system to a certain extent.
Agreed. And that's actually my position is I think it is needed today. Yeah. Any other comment on agency management system before we transition to the second segment of this? All right. So let's quickly talk about, how are we comparing apples to apples, or is it apples to oranges? The red apple and the orange. So the question is, what functions do you see is a strength on either side? Don, if you want to start with that, where do you think? Well, the question is not literally, to compare them in a way that that it puts other down. The point is, looking at the highlight of, this is where I need this and this is where I need this. And if I have both, it's 1 + 1 is 3.
Sure. The AMS system certainly is a place to organize and keep your records. And the CRM, in which I know we'll get more into with Insured Mind, is more than a sales pipeline. It truly is the full circle of client relationship building and management. And so the CRM that Insured Mind offers versus some of the others out there is it's continuous, it's ongoing. It builds as the client moves within your agency. The CRM is responding to it. Whereas an agency management system, it's not built for that in that way. It's not built out to serve the client. It's more built to serve the agents. So the CRM does a great job, Insured Mind, of not just prospecting and sales, but delivery after. And then as your client grows and moves and makes changes and things occur, Insured Mind platform is continually going to communicate with them. So it's going to act as a full circle client relationship manager for you.
And again, I think I appreciate, your love and excitement around Insured Mind. But, I think just as a generic, I think there is a value in the CRM side. And yes, I think the point you are also trying to drive in that is, if a solution is way beyond just the CRM, it enhances the capability, which like Insured Mind, again, I don't want to plug in, but just to give you a perspective, like Insured Mind is just not a CRM, and it does marketing automations and, the whole analytics aspect of it, which brings several two in one. And that kind of relieves a lot of stress on individual on managing multiple systems or having to think about how do I plug in all these pieces together. So yeah, go ahead, Sean. I want to see where you guys come from.
Yeah, so, I think as far as the CRM goes, it's first impressions are everything, right? And that's basically, we're using our CRM as a means to present that first impression to a potential client. And so, that's really where it breaks down because, as Don, I think he nailed it, it's, the CRM's for the client, the AMS is for the agent. But, after you give them that first experience, and incorporating the CRM into that and everything that goes along with it, that's really where you can earn that customer for life. And, that's, even a good CRM is going to have, your renewals built into it. And then that even makes your agency management system like obsolete for that. Really that's how you're going to earn a client for years, and the ability to engage them and to cross-sell them and to round out the book with them and everything that you really need to, just, based off that first impression that your CRM can give you.
Of course. On the similar lines, we have Momin on the here in attendance, and he's saying the same thing, which is agency management system is for policy management and CRM is for customer management. Very rightly put that way. Yeah. Brian, anything to add from a perspective of it? So today, when you guys need data, I think, this is still early days of adoption or transitioning of AMS CRM, compilation of work, because today when you ask for work, everybody rushes to the AMS.
Yes.
Hey, I need data, I go to AMS, I pull the data. But that, at least I know with Insured Mind clients, when you look for the data, you go to Insured Mind and you're pulling a data. Or, because also data has been one thing which I don't know how many AMS are doing in whatever way. It is always about downloading Excel. And we do not come from a background of data analyst. We have not got an MBA or stuff where we have, it's very intuitive, rather than it has to got to a point where all that data is summarized, visualized, interpreted to a visual story. Because that's what we need end of the day, right? We need yes or no decisions. We need red, yellow, and greens. That's what an executive mind, an agency leader sitting is wanting to know. Do I move forward? Do I step back? Am I doing good? Am I doing not so good? Right? It all boils down to very natural, basic instinct thinking of yes and no's, red and greens. So I think that's also is one very interesting thing. And Brian, I would say, kudos to you guys for taking that leap forward, is how building upon the AMSs, you guys are going to a CRM kind of a solution, which will package everything and bring it all together at that data level.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're looking forward to. Every one of our agencies is on a management system, and it's functional. But yes, the reporting and what to actually do with that information that you put in there, that's where the disconnect is. And, the management systems kind of dropped the ball on how do you relate to the client? How do you relate? What specific needs does the client have? What are they missing in terms of the policy? When is that renewal? You can look for it, but you have to go and look for it in the management system, where the CRM, I feel like, really brings the whole pieces together and how you engage with that client and hopefully grow the business.
Of course. So one thing I like to this conversation is, in the last couple of years, or maybe 3-4 years, if not, one reason why in the insurance space, CRM is starting to see some traction is because of some very new players. It's not the usual suspect of these all these unicorn CRMs, but some new players, including InsuredMine, who have bridged the gap between AMS and CRM. And I think that has been a game changer as well. Earlier, people were using CRMs because they wanted to. They come from previous background where they have seen the value of it, but the biggest frustration or the challenge they had was it was not talking to AMS. And so that was one of the bigger pain. That pain is literally getting solved as we continue to transition. As we have built a lot of integrations, whether it's Waterforce, Hawksoft is coming up, now Search, several of these guys, and they are open to these kind of collaborations. And so that I think is a game changer in terms of expanding the technological ecosystem of how the data is going back and forth and playing along in this space and creating much richer data sets based on these initial data sets. So I think that's one thing. This is a very interesting area, and I want to take a quick pause and say in our audience, anyone have any questions, guys, feel free to send it through chat or a Q&A. We will be happy to take those questions and answer them. So I'll let you guys write on that, and then we'll pick it from there. So let's take a question back. So the idea was to paint the picture of the both CRM and AMS, but this is just a peeking out of AMS. What am I missing? And we see that all the time. There is something missing, and so what is that? What are some of the biggest challenges that you guys have faced that has kind of made you move into, okay, what, AMS is great, but it is not everything that I need, and so I am transitioning. Well, not transitioning in a sense that leaving AMS behind, but adding to it. So, Don, why don't you start with your previous thinking before even InsuredMine got in the picture? I want to hear more CRM focused, which I think audience will appreciate.
Sure. So, prior to any entry of a CRM system, some of you may be there right now. You were frustrated by the ability to extract information out of your AMS. You had a meeting to prepare for with your staff or with a team, and you had to try and cobble together reports and get some ideas about what's happening. You honestly don't know what you don't know, because you're only able to get what you can out of your agency management system. It's based on a lot of reports. You try and put it all together, and then it's still just a snapshot. And it's hard to see trends. It's hard to see continuity, where you're headed, where you're missing, where you're gaining. So we went to a very simple sales CRM, and that was kind of a moment that for us was a aha moment. It was kind of shocking to see and learn more, because prior to any of that, you just live off of what you can extract from your AMS, and it's more in arrears of everything happening than in advance of what you want to be. So it's hard to be proactive. You're getting more reactive information out of an AMS. So that was where we were at prior to any CRM.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Sean, what has been your experience?
Yeah, workload for us, and really maximizing opportunities. There's a certain number of touch points that you have to do for each and every client. You've got to balance, maximizing each and every one with quantity, right? And then somewhere in between is what you sell. So that was really difficult for us. And just being able to rely on our CRM to take a lot of that off our plate, really, makes us more effective, increases the amount of outreach we can have, eliminates us having to use Excel or really organize stacks of paper that we move from left to right, or file folders that we shift on a daily basis, and missing out on opportunities. That was a big thing, is how many opportunities we missed because we just didn't have time, because we didn't have a CRM or even an effective CRM. Don, you mentioned you went to a very simple one, and it was aha. And I think everybody goes through that at some point in time, whether they've already done it and they gradually evolve to a platform like InsuredMine, or they're still wondering if a CRM is right for them. And as far as things getting missed and dropped, it's just the follow-up. That's a huge thing with any prospect, is the follow-up. And everybody's had a situation where someone didn't follow up with them, and it's frustrating. And that was one of our downfalls, was the follow-up and trying to take on too much.
Yep, I hear you. I'll just add to that is, and several of you on the call would know that if you are buying leads, your closing ratio may be, around probably 15-20% on those. And if you're paying like $20 or $30 per lead, so literally, just multiply that by 4 times, so you're spending $60 to $80 or close to $100 per lead that will convert. But if it is something that would have converted, but it just got dropped off in the flow, what happens? You just lost that business. And you also not only lost a new opportunity, but you also lost some cost that you had paid to convert. And that is huge, and so that is one thing we are very particular about, is in seeing how things do not fall through the cracks. How do you have a very tight stage by stage flow that is, making things move. So I think you're absolutely right. And it reminds me of a story, 2018 end. I was visiting a client, and this was early days CRM Insured Mind. And I asked him, do you have a CRM? And this gentleman just turns around on his chair and looks at the back wall, it had a lot of sticky notes. And that because that's my CRM, that's my customer relationship, right? And I say, before that relationship is forged, that glue on that will dry out and it will fall. And so that's what happens, right? That sticky notes will fall. And what are we doing to make sure those stickiness is increased in those? And so it's very natural as to, by default, agencies are working on the instinct is selling, right? As much as we are all about service, as much as we are all about risk management, but the instinct is in selling. That's where the growth is. And you cannot be selling. It's like you cannot be cutting a tree without having a chainsaw, right? And you cannot just go there and use any kind of a hammer or anything else to do that, right? You need the right tools to do the right things, and you cannot be selling without having a CRM, a sales tool. And so that's, in a nutshell, is where this whole CRM premise is all about. Lynn has a question. Let me bring it up for all of you. Prior to using InsuredMine, was there certain data points that you had to focus on in your AMS to make sure it was clean? Is there a checklist? Thank you. So point is, she's trying to prepare herself before onboarding to InsuredMine. Are there things that I need to work before I get in? Don or Sean, if you guys want to take that.
Yeah, I mean, I can. You really, when integrating your CRM with or InsuredMine with whatever agency management system, you really don't need to verify any of your data, because as you update it in your agency management system, it's going to update in InsuredMine as well. So it was very seamless for us. I mean, I think it was. It was that quick in order to get it done. So, and it talks both ways. So as we're updating in InsuredMine, it's updating in our agency management system and vice versa. So there's really no need to worry about your data in your agency management system up front.
Yeah, thank you.
I agree. Yeah, your information will flood over and populate InsuredMine very well. The only thing I would encourage, just so you can get more exposure out of the gate with all of the engagement opportunities that InsuredMine offers, is to capture emails and have them in your system. Not knowing what agency management system you're on, the more emails you have, the more you'll be able to use those engagement opportunities. And then also the other thing to consider is, does your state require permission for texting? And just know that that's an option in InsuredMine, a very smooth, slick option that they offer. And you'll just want to know that kind of going into that, so you do it right.
Perfect, thank you. I want to just build upon an element that Sean mentioned was, yes, it goes both ways, and it's a very natural bringing up the data from the management system. In fact, we encourage it to an extent. Bring your dirty laundry here. We will clean it. And that's what it does. It will show you the vulnerabilities of what you have built over the years, which is, I'll give you 3 examples, and a couple of them Don has already touched upon. When we ask a very simple question to most of our prospects, do you know how many clients or contacts are missing email? The answer is, yeah, we can find out, but nobody knows. And that is just one click on your dashboard to know exactly how many are missing email. Second is, I have done analysis of 100+ agencies just last weekend. And at an average, they have 4x to 5x more. Remember this, 4x to 5x more carriers that show up in their reports than they are doing business with. So standard is, they have 30 or 40 carriers. If you look at that, it will show 110. Why? There is 15 versions of Travelers. There is 10 versions of Mercury. So, and so that also is a kind of a bad data because it is not helping you hone down on what you need to analyze. Okay, where is my distribution between these carriers? It will split into, you may have 50% with Chubb, but it will show 5% for 10 of those Chubb. So how would you understand you have 50%? So those things are maybe the way it is, but we are cleaning that laundry, as I say, is to make it look more effective and efficient so you can build upon those data-driven approaches of how you're going to go after what you're going after, whether it's about your cross-sell designs, whether it's about going after those profit sharing. That is one of our recent focus has been how do we help agencies expand on that. And we'll talk more on our next webinar. That's a clue actually. Will be because those are the things, right? What do we care? We care about how can we see 10, 20, 30, 40% growth with each of you guys. If you grow, we feel good and we grow. So, well, without going much into Insured Mind, but that's what on the CRM side, and Len, that's a very valid question, is how do we prepare ourselves for a solution like this? Bill has a question. Let me take that. Where are you with integration with HawkSoft? Insured Mind is still not listed in the marketplace integration. Bill, I wish I can answer you that question publicly, but ping me after this and I will give you an answer, and it's a positive one. So hopefully that answers your question, but I can give you more. So back to our Insured Mind story that we have been talking about, So let me ask you guys, you all are using it from different perspectives. Again, starting with you, Sean, let's say, what do you think is the biggest value of Insured Mind that among everything, pick the biggest value?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's all, how it impacts your bottom line. That's our cost per client acquisition is just, decreased substantially. We can now do it cheaper and do more of it. So, you combine, a lower cost as far as acquiring a client and the ability to just sell more of those, and it's had a really big impact on just our volume and the amount of money we can bring in per agent.
Mm-hmm. And that's this is a new era thinking, Sean, what you bring to the table. And it's not to date anybody, but I'll say this. Initially, we were all driven by how much premium we write. Half of them have no clue, what's the even revenue, because, it will come into the month in our bank account or in a statement from a carrier. But that is getting better. But where I'm going with what you said is so important to everyone is understanding your, what you call as CAC, customer acquisition cost. What it takes to bring in a new customer. And then build upon it, what is your LTV, what is your long-term value of that customer. These CAC and LTV, if we start tracking those two things, you would naturally see how that agency is growing without thinking about too many parameters. Because because CAC and LTV is all centered around your customer. One is your cost, another is your value. And that's where we start to see a lot of conversation happening, Sean, with other agencies. Hey, are you tracking what does it cost to bring in a new client? Do you know if you bring in because if it costs you $100 to bring in a customer and the value over the lifetime is $300, you want to do that 10,000 times, right? But if we know end of the day, it costs me $100 to bring this guy and he's going to run away after one premium, I'm going to make maybe $60, I'm losing money. And people sometimes do not put these dots together. They don't connect them. And it's important. That's where we are going with several agencies talking on these things. What is your CAC and LTVs? Brian, how do you see what is the biggest value to you, which is very different from these two folks?
Well, for us, it's actually being able to aggregate the data from the 108 different agencies using various management systems. Going back to Lynn's question, as far as the data that's key, obviously all the client carrier data is very important, policy data, but I think two things where a lot of agencies really miss some opportunity is having a differentiation between a billing company and an issuing company, where they're putting business with a broker and they're just putting the broker in twice. And they may be writing $150,000, $200,000 with one given carrier, but not realize it and have it through 4 different brokers, and consolidate that or possibly even pursue an individual contract. The other thing that's critical from our standpoint is going to be the classification code, whether it be SIC or NAICS, where you can run reports and be able to see how much business is in the book out of a certain industry segment. So, say some regulation comes out that affects contractors specifically, you can see what contractors you have in your pipeline, which contractors are the current clients of the agency, and actually be able to reach out and communicate with those clients specifically. From our standpoint, if it's something where we're going to engage in a carrier and they have a new appetite for restaurants, or they're getting into something that they haven't done in the past, we can effectively be able to look at how much business we have, which agencies have it, and hopefully connect those agencies with that particular carrier.
Yeah. Brian, that topic itself warrants a whole 1-hour discussion. That's so rich. The value that brings to everybody in this community, and understanding that what you were just talking about. How do you shuffle the deck to, without doing a lot, create that value? And my learning by talking to probably 30 or 50 agencies in this very short period has been that maybe 2 or 3 of them are doing it. Most of them are not doing it. Most of them are just being reactive. That end of the year, if I end up getting it from the carrier, the profit sharing, yes, I'm happy about it. But don't have a strategy in place. So we will bring you back on that topic itself. I think that's a very rich topic to bring a lot of value to the community. Hanati Hussain has a question. Does Insured Mind assist in automating the workflow within an agency? And that's simple answer is yes. And these guys are pro, both Sean and Tom. They're using a lot of those on a daily basis. As we're hitting at the top of the hour, we got 5 more minutes, so we may be able to take one more question. But before that, Don, your point on what is the biggest value Insured Mind brings to you all?
I would say it's impact across the whole organization. So it's a electronic employee. That's how I view it. It is an electronic employee who shows up, does an incredible amount of work every day that will impact literally everybody in your organization, from your receptionist to your sales team, to your service team, to managers, to owners, to your marketing. And hey, if you don't have a marketing team, you now have a marketing team. You do now. Yeah. That's right. So literally this is an electronic employee who is not going to falter. It's not going to fail you. It shows up every day and does incredible amounts of work and will lighten the load for everybody across your organization. Yeah. And don't let anyone in your organization fear that this is going to take their place. It's going to make their job better and easier, and it's going to allow them to do the things that they need to do, which is get in front of your clients and your customers, and it's going to do the behind the scenes work for them.
And trust me, guys, I didn't pay Don to say that.
I have learned the value.
But I really appreciate you guys. Thank you all. No, this is very, very heartening to hear such kind of testimonials and feedback, because it does tell me that our heart is in the right place. We are listening to the right things. We are reacting to the right pain points. And I still believe, it's the tip of the iceberg right now. What we have done, we have just scratched the surface. We have a long way to go. So it will take a lot of support from each of you in getting where we need to. It will need some patience from a lot of you as well. But with the pace and the commitment we bring to the table, I think we are best suited to take it to that destination where we all are designed to go with a solution like this for an agency of your building. Because if that's what you want to build, you want to build it on the right platforms. With that being said, I'll take just one quick sentence from each of you as we come to top of the hour, and before we wrap up. And any question, guys, please, it's the last minute. Anything we can answer for you, feel free to bring in. Otherwise, one final statement from all three of you.
I'll go ahead and jump in and take that first. I think a lot of what we talked about today has been centered around data and customers and information around them. And there's, so many different things that you can do with that data, but you got to have a tool that can actually function to present it in a way and give you the steps to actually be able to do it. And I think that's where Insured Mind comes in. And I think we're excited about the opportunity and moving forward with being able to pull that data together where we can actually do some of those things to come in and go on.
Thank you. Thanks, Brian. Sean?
I have lots of time. By comparison's sake, my employees have lots of time. My CSRs have lots of time that has just been saved or given back, or however you want to say it, because of this. So, that question about, does it automate? I mean, yeah, it definitely does. Everything from, we're very specific. So we've got checklists that show up in certain stages of the pipeline, the intake forms to, communications, just as far as our progress is with clients. And then, even after the policy's sold, my CSRs get notified and are assigned tasks. So they know they need to do, what they need to do for that. So it's time. And really, you ask anyone that owns a business, what's one thing you wish you had more of, and it's time. And Insured Mind definitely gives that to you.
Awesome. Thanks for that's a good way of looking at it. I never thought it from a time dimension, but yeah, it's an interesting one. Thank you. Don, last comment.
Yeah, if you're joining today and if you've not thought about a CRM, or it sounds scary because you hear us all talk about it in different ways, don't be afraid. You don't know what it is going to do for you. I get it. And you're just going to have to take the leap. You're going to jump in and just do it. Even if you're afraid, do it afraid. You won't regret it. It's going to teach you so much about your whole organization. You'll never be ready for it. You just got to do it.
But the support is amazing. So,
amazing. Yeah. Absolutely.
Thank you. I remember, Don, you mentioned, I'm trying to look through my notes. You mentioned a word, that where you said, I started with how from being scared to being wowed in your journey. Talk to me a little bit about that before we bring a closure. Yeah, from shock to being wowed. So yep. Before we wrap up, if we can have that closing statement.
Sure. We went from shock to awe, because when you take 25 years of data and start looking at it and put it into something like Insured Mind, your mind starts getting really open to it will shed light onto things that you've not been able to see prior to this. And so you kind of are in shock, and then you will go to the awe side of it, and it will take you to another level. It will help you to scale.
Well, with that wonderful statement, move from shock to that awe moment. Let's get there. And thank you all the attendees on this, being patient and listening to all these wonderful conversation. And thank you to my panelists and speakers here for spending your hour with us and sharing your knowledge and your experience about this. So we'll continue on these engagements in our near future on other webinars. But for today, this is all we got. Thank you.
Hey, thank you.